Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Sports Rap. Yeah, I'm Bad Daddy Rap, Scott Morgan, Rock the Motor City Mad Mouth. We have a show that's going to be like no other that we do. This is what you call a semi version of Fire Up. It has its own little country club dimension. And while I use the words Fire Up, the woman down here at the bottom, Candy, will be doing that show after we get done with this show. And she talk about a country club, and that is it. All right, let me introduce the crew real quick. We got Ed McAndrew back in the house. His third show of the week. He's great doing these 3 a weeks. Cody Stinks.
Happy to be here.
The future of this show, in case my voice goes bad, he's my heir apparent. We have Mike Santos. Okay, this guy here is a jack of all trades. He's mastered soccer. Now he's going to have a lot of different challenges tonight. And we have Candy Ebling. Let's get to it. We're going to talk about a hockey first, and then we'll ease into the rest of the topics as well. And this first one has a big international flavor because the NHL roster breakdown for the Stanley Cup finals between Carolina and the Vegas Golden Knights is as follows. The Carolina Hurricanes had 10 Canadian players. They had 8 from the United States. They had 3 from Russia, 2 from Finland, and 2 from Denmark. As for the Vegas Golden Knights, they had 16 from Canada, 5 from the United States, 2 from Sweden, 2 from Russia, 1 from Switzerland, 1 from Denmark. The other player that comes from the Czech Republic. Ed, talk about an international flavor.
That is an international flavor. Can we say that the Americans are starting to become better hockey players? If you look at the two teams, Carolina has had less Canadians and more Americans than the Vegas Knights. Did you say it was like a 16-5 and a 10-8 or something like that? So I think that's one of the things personally for me that makes hockey so great is that the international flavor, the Canadians, the Americans, the Russians, the Finns, you got them coming from all over the place, the Czech Republic. So it makes it very entertaining. And I can just imagine, and Mike could probably even speak better to it, about what it's like to be on one of those teams with all the different international flavors and idiosyncrasies. So, but I still think Americans are getting better.
Okay, Cody.
God, I would hope so, especially after them winning, the Olympic gold. Slavin was the first American to win gold and the Stanley Cup in the same year. But I agree with what Ed was saying. More Americans. I like the diversity of hockey. You have so many different, international countries that are just all playing one sport, and Canada's definitely one of the top ones. But I've just noticed that we're getting more and more players from different countries, and they're getting better and better. I mean, 20 years ago, were we talking about anything about Czech or Switzerland or even Latvia? No, we weren't. So I'm loving that these other countries are growing more and more.
And Mike?
I think when you talk about U.S. players in the NHL, you have to look back to the early 1990s when the NHL expanded into non-traditional U.S. markets with teams. Tampa Bay Lightning probably being the first, putting a team in Florida. They came in with the Ottawa Senators. And then soon after, the league put teams in Anaheim and Florida again with the Florida Panthers and the Ducks. Mm-hmm. That was 93, I believe. So, and then it's gone from there, right? I mean, in a couple of moves, we ended up with a team in San Jose, California.
Right.
Then we had some teams that relocated, such as initially we had the Winnipeg Jets going to Phoenix.
Right.
Of course, we had the Minnesota North Stars relocating to Dallas. And then, of course, subsequent expansion to places like Nashville, Tennessee. We could go on, but the point is that we've now had 30 years of kids, most importantly, growing up with NHL teams in their area to follow and to fall in love with the sport. And so now I think it's only a natural after 30 years that we're seeing an increasing number of NHL players from the US, but most importantly, we're seeing an increasingly number of good players and even star players in the US. I mean, it's been going on for a while, and going back to the, I mean, you hate to say like Joe Mullen, but he was an oddity at the time, right? When he comes into the league in the late 70s and the 80s.
Yeah.
But then as you move on, whether it's, a Mike Modano getting drafted in the late 80s, moving on, to the Keith Kachuks, the Jeremy Roenics, the Paul Correas, and then onward to the Patrick Kanes, and of course now all the great U.S. born players we have in the NHL now. I think that's a big part of it. I don't think the Canadians have really fallen off, but I do see in recent years a little bit of a decrease in players from places like Finland, Sweden, and even Russia.
Right.
And the Russians really didn't come over into the league until the 90s themselves.
Right.
And now I think where we're seeing an increase of U.S. players, they seem to be taking jobs away from, and by the way, we've had expansion, as I mentioned, which has increased a lot more jobs and a lot more opportunities in the NHL. But for percentage wise, I think they've taken jobs away from, Finnish players, Swedish players, more than, and even Russian players more than the U.S. That's just an observation. I don't know statistically. It's interesting though, because what's happened in the last 2 years, first NIL money for U.S. college players, and secondly, now Canadian Hockey League, or what we know as major junior players from Canada, being allowed to play in the U.S. And being able to play the U.S. colleges. I think it's going to hurt U.S. hockey going forward, because U.S. players for the most part had college hockey all to themselves, and college hockey is becoming more and more of a stepping stone to the NHL. And now you're seeing, just last year there were 250 Canadian hockey players that came and took spots in the NCAA, and so they're taking those spots away from American kids. And if American kids see that there's less opportunity for that first, we'll call it the first goal of playing NCAA hockey, that I think in the years to come is something to watch, to see if the USA hockey players in the NHL takes a step back. So I said a lot there, but I had a lot to say.
That's good. That's good.
Well, Maggie, if you say a lot, you know more about hockey than any of us will know in 9 million lifetimes. I get it. I mean, you Mike Modano and Patrick Kane. Who are some of the other ones that you mentioned on that list that were prominent? Go ahead.
Jeremy Roenick.
Yeah, Jeremy Roenick was one.
Just got nominated for the Hall of Fame. I mean, it was a small crew going back into the 60s and 70s. I mean, Joe Mullen first into the scene. He really cut into the NHL in the very early 80s and became a great player. I remember when he became the all-time U.S. goal scorer in the NHL.
And those guys are U.S. hockey. And ever since the word you talked about Modano, Kane, and Roenick for sure, and Joe Mullen. Candy, you learned a little bit about international hockey thanks to the guy to your left. Anything you want to add to this?
Well, the one thing I would add is that I see hockey is way in advance of U.S. soccer, because there are some of the big name hockey players that have built a reputation. So more kids want to play hockey, as opposed to, you guys had talked before on with this being soccer too, that there isn't a big name U.S. born soccer star for the men's team.
Right.
and there
That's
are
a good
more for
point.
the hockey's team.
You're right.
So
Yeah.
I can see where hockey is taking off more than like soccer and some of those, even though, and I think the international flavor, like the World Cup, when you guys did that in-season tournament, like that brought more recognition to the sport
Right.
for the casual fan as well.
Well, it's amazing how we. Go ahead, Mike.
One thing we haven't touched on though that I think is again something that really has to be dealt with, and the NHL's they're it when it comes to hockey at the highest level, and so they're the ones that really have to step in here and do something about it, and that's the cost, the expense.
Right.
I mean, it's always been a very expensive sport. Now it's just outrageous.
Right.
I mean, kids have to buy skates. I mean, we're talking, 5 to 10-year-olds have skates that are cost $700-800 for a pair of skates that last them one season and they grow out of them, right? We're talking
right.
about hockey sticks for kids that cost upwards of $400 for a hockey stick that they break. I mean, that doesn't even include all the other equipment, the travel that has to take place, and like every other sport, it seems in this country, it's turned into a travel sport. I don't know why kids can't play against other kids in their own neighborhood in any sport, but for some reason in this country, adults have gotten involved and see a way to make money off of kids, and so now we've got to, I'll give you a quick story. I had a good friend of mine who I played hockey with in college. He was living out in LA, and he had a kid who was playing for the LA Junior Kings program.
Mm-hmm.
He was 11 or 12 years old, and they had to go out and play a tournament in Detroit, Michigan. And they went all the way out to Detroit, Michigan. And who did they play in the first game in Detroit, Michigan? A team from the Anaheim Junior Ducks.
Wow.
Oh my God.
They could have driven 35 miles down, the freeway to play, and instead, they spent thousands of dollars to go over and play them in a tournament in Detroit. I mean, that's just some of the foolishness that's going on. And I say it's the NHL's responsibility because if they really want to keep this pipeline going, they're the ones that have some power with the manufacturers of equipment, of sticks, and all these types of things. Like they need to step in and deal with this because it's really crazy the expense that they have for this kind of stuff. And one last thing on that I'll talk about. I know I'm ranting here, but this is one of the things that really is important to me. Major League Baseball through the years has always stood by having wooden bats.
Right.
The NFL could have done that in the late 80s and early 90s and said, no, sticks have got to be made out of wood. And they didn't. They took the licensing money from some of these companies, and first they created aluminum sticks, and now they have graphite sticks. And the sticks have just grown and grown and grown in expense. And honestly, they're made cheaper and cheaper to break so that you have to buy another one. And that I put a lot of responsibility on the NHL.
Okay. All right. Well, we talk about kids getting involved. Get ready for the young girls and the women because this next topic is going to definitely give them a reason why to continue. Because there's a report that Melinda French Gates to join the Seattle Kraken ownership group, one of the world's most influential philanthropists and business leaders, joining the Seattle Kraken ownership group. According to ESPN, there's a story on her. The NHL franchise announced that Melinda French Gates will become minority owner pending approval of the NHL Board of Governors, which by now probably has taken place. If it hasn't, it will. The move pairs French Gates with Kraken majority owner Samantha Holloway, one of the few women serving as a principal owner in the NHL. French Gates told ESPN she was drawn to both Seattle and Holloway's vision of the franchise. All right, Ed, you got Miss Gates involved. What are your thoughts about what she can bring to the Kraken?
I think it's she's going to bring the money. She'll bring some insight. I think it's I think it's a step in the right direction to see more women getting into ownership groups, and there are a lot of smart, intelligent business women out there that know what they're doing, and know sports. I mean, if you can't, we're in the day and age of women knowing as much about sports as men. It's no longer just a male dominated knowledge base. You don't you have to look, just turn on ESPN or any of the stations. Everyone has a female host, or the majority of them have female hosts, and some of them have. I was watching something on ESPN. They were talking about betting lines for football, and there was a host, and the prognosticator was a woman as well. So I think it's going to be good. I think women can bring a different insight and have a different type of management skill. So it'll be fun to watch to see how this progresses.
Cody.
Just to piggyback off of what Ed said, it's good to see when women get involved with sports, and maybe with someone like her status, maybe players would want to start going to Seattle, because we just saw 3 players, I want to say, that could have taken a lot of money in Seattle and said no and took less money somewhere else.
Right.
So I think this could be a good thing for Seattle, and hopefully it can make a turnaround for them. Seattle is a great organization. They just need to do better at their team, because they just have a bunch of, I would say, middle 6 players on their lineup, and it's a shame because it's such a great atmosphere there. I've been to a game, loved it. I would definitely want to move to Seattle if I could afford it and everything, and I love the weather. So I hope they really turn things around.
Okay, Mike, some thoughts about Miss Gates.
Well, first of all, Cody's completely right. They need to spend more time worrying about the team on the ice, because they've done a terrible job there. They were granted the same favorable expansion rules that the Vegas Knights had.
Right.
And they did a terrible job. Now, you could argue a little bit the teams got fleeced by the Knights, so they were a little bit more on guard. But, they've been in the league now for a few years. And Ron Francis was not a good GM, no doubt. I don't think that his replacement's done much yet either. And Cody's right. They've got a bunch of middle of the road players. They don't seem to have any direction. I haven't seen them, knock our socks off with any draft yet. So they got some problems of, they don't get their act together. They're going to end up being, the next, I don't know, Columbus Blue Jackets, or one of these teams that just goes through, mediocrity or below for the next 25 or 30 years. As far as the ownership group is concerned, and I was going to call her Ms. Gates, but I guess Ms. French now. Anyway,
French Gates, yeah.
Only the French Gates. Yeah.
The Kraken's majority owner is already a woman. I don't know if people realize. But Samantha Holloway is the majority partner and I believe chairman of the board for the Seattle Kraken.
Right.
So, bringing in a woman is great, but bringing in somebody of her stature would also be great, other than the fact that they already have some of those people too. They've got Jerry Bruckheimer, probably one of the most famous movie producers and directors in the world, who's been a member of the ownership group since the beginning, and who's a huge hockey fan. They've got Marshawn Lynch,
Beast mode.
involved in the ownership group. So, good for her. I'm sure she's going to try to help, with an impact, but I don't think money or status or having somebody that's well known on their ownership group is what that organization needs. I think Cody hit it right on the head. They need some good hockey people in there that know what the heck they're doing and put a better team on the ice.
Okay. Candy?
I think it's great. I think the investment marks her first ownership stake in a major professional sports franchise, and comes at a time when women are assuming increasingly visible leadership roles across sports. Quoting her, she said, "It's just time." French Gates said, "What you're seeing is a generation of women coming into their full power. I've walked into tough rooms, and being one of a few is very hard. once we can create enough that we're one of many, it just gets easier. She is also she confirmed that she is also assembling an ownership group prepared to bid for an NBA franchise in Seattle as well, trying to bring the Supersonics back to Seattle. So,
Okay.
I love those uniforms. I wish
Yes.
they'd bring that back.
They were.
All right. Well, again, I'll go back to what Mike said, though. That's all well and good. You got money behind you, but you need hockey people as well. All right,
Yeah.
let's continue the narrative. The Nashville Predators have hired Chris McFarland as president and GM. Ed,
Good. I'll pass. I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna pass on this. That's all he gave me. Christmas farm. All right, good stuff. Hey, Cody. Cody, what do you
Yep.
say?
all right, so you don't have a comment on?
No,
Chris
I don't have.
McFarland?
I don't have a comment.
That's okay. No big deal. Let's move it along.
No, yep.
Well, I like the moves that Chris McFarland did in Colorado. You know, he bringing Kadri back. I mean, the Rantanen deal, I thought he did pretty well on that. Getting and Natchez and a couple draft picks for it. I think that really helped. I'd much rather have Rantanen all stay there. I mean, I wish they would have just paid him, but all in all, I think he's done good moves, and I'm glad that he went to Nashville. And I'm just, he's brought a lot of players from Colorado to Nashville. Players that he got in Colorado, brought them to Nashville, extended them. And I like the moves that Nashville's done so far this offseason. I don't think they're gonna, contend, but I think they're gonna be better than what they've done in years past. So all in all, I think it's a great move for Nashville to bring in someone like Chris McFarland, who worked under Joe Sakic.
There you go. Get that Joe Sakic in. I'll have some in him next week. And of course, Barry Trott's left. Obviously, to spend more time with his family. Mike?
I know a lot about this. One, because I worked for Nashville for quite a while.
Okay.
But two, because Chris McFarland was my intern. And I actually wrote and recommended him for his first job with the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Okay.
Under Doug
All
McKinnon. He's a good guy. He has a law degree. I think as a hire for this position for Nashville, it's an underwhelming hire. He left Columbus having no success. And I'm not blaming that on him. He was the assistant GM. But connected to Colorado through Craig Billington, who was a friend of his and was leaving as the assistant GM at the time. And most of the work that was done there to put that team together, especially the drafting of McKinnon and Makar, was done under Joe Sakic and done under the scouting staff. Chris has very little, if any, scouting experience. He was pretty much a contract negotiator and an in-the-office guy. I don't know, not that he doesn't know the sport and didn't play the sport growing up a little bit. He's a New York guy. But I don't know that he has got a lot of experience when it comes to player personnel stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I mean, Joe Sakic, even though the last few years when Chris was elevated to general manager there, was still in the background really running the show there. And he's back running the show right now, at least until he can find somebody else that he trusts there. So I think Chris has fortunately walked into a great opportunity. I don't know if he's ready for it because Nashville is in a heap of trouble.
Okay.
Yeah, they've done a terrible job of drafting for 10, almost 15 years now.
Okay.
They don't have any really good prospects in the system. I mean, give you an example, not this past draft, but the draft before, they passed up on, some really good players to take a third line, a guy that's at best going to be a third line player out of the OHL.
Are you talking about Brady Martin?
Yeah. I mean, like they passed on Martone for one. They passed on Higgins, who Boston took. I mean, both of those guys were taken right after they took Martin. I think Martin's a good kid. I think he's going to play hard and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that's the type of player you turn when you've got the 5th overall draft pick, that's not how you turn your organization around, by taking a lower line winger, especially when you've got some skilled guys that can play center. And both of those guys that I just mentioned went behind Martin after they took him. So they got a lot of work to do. And Barry Trotz, another, I would consider him a good friend of mine, had no business being in that job.
Right.
I mean, he did a great job for years coaching there, and obviously he did a great job in Washington, and even did pretty well with the Islanders.
Right.
He's a great person, but had no experience and had no idea what it was like to be a general manager, and it showed for the couple of years he was there. I mean, all he did in 2 years was run out on July 1st and give a bunch of older players a lot of money. Now they're stuck with it. And, Steven Stamkos isn't what he was, Well, the defenseman Shea, not what he was. Like these, they had last year when they opened the season, I think they had 11 players over the age of 30, in their lineup. And this is just it's a young players game now in the NHL. And you just can't compete with that. But more importantly, you can't get rid of them.
Yeah.
You lock up these guys with these no move contracts, and you give them the kind of money that they gave them, Marchessault is another one. I can't think of the name. The kid they sent off to Dallas. I mean, they just gave a lot of money and no move contracts to some older guys. They put themselves in a hole. They can't move these kind of guys. And if you're Steven Stamkos, you're like, I've already won some Stanley Cups. I'm 35 or 6 or whatever I am. The weather's nice here. My wife's happy. So, yeah, I'll take it.
Well said. Okay, Katie, anything you want to add? You're learning a lot, aren't you, about hockey, aren't you?
I'm learning a lot. Mike's got the expertise. I'm going to refer to what he said.
The topics just happen to be ones that I'm connected to tonight so far.
Right.
That's good.
Well, hey, listen, Mike,
Exactly.
I know you're connected to a lot of people. I find there's a person you haven't been connected to tonight. We're hitting bullseyes with a couple of them.
So Scott, can we say that he comes from Mike's coaching tree? When we're talking about coaching trees and stuff. So he comes from Mike's tree since he was his intern.
Yeah, and he's not doing very well.
Yeah, you might want to fix that tree there, Mike.
Yeah. See, I'm a fortune teller. I know exactly the topics Santos connects with. Okay, how long have I worked with you, Mike? Quite a while, right? I've known you a long time, especially through a special friend of ours that I should always be thankful for, the late Frank Lodano. That's how I came up with Mike, and Mike and I have known each other for ages. All right, Kenny, anything you want to add to it, or are you just taking an education? All right, we're going to take a little bit of dive into hockey history, because on June 4th, 1998, Olaf Kolzig and the Capitals defeated Dominik Hasek and the Sabres 3-2 in overtime of Game 6 to advance to the Stanley Cup Final. Kolzig stopped 39 of 41 shots, despite losing to Detroit 4 straight. By the way, I didn't like that empty net goal. That's why I brought this up for you, Eddie. Okay. Then it finally finished the playoffs at 941 for Sabres. And I had to bring this up, and for no other reason, you. So go ahead. What are your thoughts about Olaf?
Ole Kozik was great. He was great here in Washington. He not only was a star on the ice, but he was a fan favorite. And he was here for a while after his career. He played. He was the goalies coach for a while, and so on. And he's still, if I'm not mistaken, he's still active in the community and he's around the area. I remember that very well. I remember that they got boat raced by the Red Wings in '97. I mean,
Oh, okay.
it was yeah. I thought they were. I don't know. I was hoping it was going to be closer than a 4-0 route, and then what did it take us another 19ish years or whatever it was for us to get back to the Stanley Cup final. But yeah, it was exciting back then. So, but he was a great goalie. He was fun to watch. He was and the Caps have I think have been have had some good goalies over the years. So we'll have to see how this year turns out.
Oh, I had fun when I was thinking of the title. I had to put you on there. I like to put a Washington on. Well, but I'll tell
Thank
you,
you.
but no disrespect.
No.
Kolzig is a great goaltender. He really
Yeah.
is.
Yep.
And what he did with the Washington Capitals is unbelievable. Cody?
I don't know much about this. I was just a wee little lad when this happened, so I'm gonna pass on this one.
That's okay. No big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say 97's probably putting Cody back.
I don't want to tell you guys how old I was. Okay, we'll go past that part.
Well,
Yeah,
it's all right.
okay.
Wait till I hit you with some older topics on the ace card with you.
Oh,
Cody.
you have, Scott. You have.
Yeah, I got news for you. That's why I like having a young guy like him around. Well, I'm too old. I don't have to say nothing about that. And that's where Mike and I show our wear, and so is Ed. Candy's new to the sport, so we can't really match it. Go ahead, Mike. You know plenty about Ole the goalie.
Yeah, I mean, Ole the goalie was he was the guy that put the Caps over the top finally, as Ed mentioned.
Yes.
They had a streak of making the playoffs as good as anyone for years, but they just couldn't get to the finals. They had a lot of tough series loss. I remember the Mother's Day early morning game against the Islanders, and what was it, triple OT or 4 OTs? And
Yeah, it was something crazy like that.
Pat LaFontaine just
Yeah.
in a rammer and throws one in from near the blue line that nobody sees. It goes in to beat them, and in the seventh game, it took Kolzig, to get them to their first final. Yeah, they got swept by Detroit, but that was, as good a Detroit team as they had for 15, 20 years.
Right.
It was also, I believe, it was back-to-back cups for Detroit then.
Yeah, it was.
So, yeah.
It was the memory I have after that game, that fourth game, which was in Washington, right? And, was them bringing Konstantinov out in a wheelchair when they presented the Stanley Cup because he had been severely injured the year before in the celebration party, coming home from a celebration party in a limousine that was struck by another car and it paralyzed him. Yeah, I mean, great. I mean, he was great for Washington, and the guy that finally got them over the top to the finals, and then of course it was years later that they finally win. But the GM of that Washington team was George McPhee, who ended up being the GM of and president of the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yep.
And they got there.
Yes.
They lost to Washington.
Yeah.
After George left Washington and ended up in Vegas, they lost to Washington in the finals. But then they've been back a couple more times since then, and they won themselves a cup too.
Okay, Katie, anything you want to add to this?
Well, the only thing I'll add is because I obviously did a little research, is that Olaf is a South African-born German former professional ice hockey goaltender. With the exception of 8 games with the Tampa Bay Lightning, he played his entire 14-year NHL career with the Capitals. And he ranks among NHL's top 30 in career saves. He's 15th with 18,233. Wins, he's 28th with 303. Games, 23rd with 719. And minutes, 23rd with 41,671.
Okay, well, let's go to another hockey topic. We'll hit our featured topic of the night, and then it gets interesting after that. And let's start with the lowest attendance this past season. Utah, 12,500. But I don't know why, because the Delta Center is obviously going to be refurbished, and that arena is going to be renovated so it's more hockey suited. Well, everybody's talked about the struggles of the Winnipeg Jets. They ended up with 14,200. Anaheim Ducks, Cody, 15,700 is what they have on here. New Jersey, 16,100. And San Jose, 16,200. Some thoughts about these attendance numbers? Ed.
If you don't put people in the seats, you can't have a franchise because you're not going to be able to pay your bills. It's really that simple. You got to figure out how to, and what puts people in the seats is winning. And I think we've said it on one of, I don't know, I get all my shows mixed up. I think Candy has said it a couple times on shows we've been on. Sports is entertainment, and you have to deliver a good product. If it's in any sport. If you're not winning, if you're not at least, being competitive, let's say not even winning, let's just say competitive. And nowadays, in these stadiums, the people want an experience. They don't just want, there are people that go to the games not for the game, but for the experience of being in the stadium or in the box or whatever. And if you don't fill those seats, you're not going to be able to, pay for the cost. It's a business, and you got to put butts in the seats to be able to pay the bills. And it's really, if not, that's why owners look to move franchise. One of the reasons, I shouldn't say the only reason. A reason why is owners want to move franchise because they think they'll move their problem from city X to city Y, and that doesn't always work. But so that's my 2 cents.
Okay, Cody, Anaheim's on that list. But again, in all fairness to Utah, they're obviously in the Delta Center, and they're trying to get that building fixed up. I think that those numbers are going to improve right now. They're playing in a basketball facility. And I think it's like 17, 18,000, but I don't think they had hockey in mind until they were able to snag the Arizona Coyotes. So thoughts, Cody?
No, I was going to give Utah a pass because I know they've done a lot of renovating, but also the Ducks have been doing a lot of renovating. Because the Ducks owners are planning on doing like a whole entertainment district around the arena.
Oh, are they? Okay.
And so like I believe the Ducks are the only team in NHL that don't have escalators in their arena. Really? And yes, I do hate that. But I know they're doing a lot of renovation. They have a whole parking garage that's free. It's free to park there for now. But I'm actually kind of shocked that they were that low. But then again, at the same time, I was thinking about it. With a lot of the renovations they're doing, a lot of stuff was closed off because I was there for the home opener and that place was packed. I was there for a few other games and I've never been there where it was so packed and loud. It was like I was there for a couple of the playoff games and it was like, let's just say I was happy. I was so happy to be there. It was like just it's like something I could have never imagined. When you go to a playoff game and experience your favorite team playing in the playoffs and beating the Edmonton Oilers to move on to the first round, that was so much fun. One of the best games I've ever really been to, as a whole, the experience and all. But the Winnipeg Jets, I've always had issues with attendance. But it's always hard to bring players to Winnipeg, but it doesn't seem like it's hard to sometimes keep players in Winnipeg. So I believe that's the hard part. And it was just those 3 teams, or there was another one you said?
Oh, there were 2 other ones. Want me to go back to it? Or?
Yeah, but maybe after the USA winning Olympics, maybe that could help drive up some attendance everywhere else too. That could really be a big thing.
Okay. Mike?
There's a couple issues here. One is in Winnipeg and in Salt Lake City, the building capacity is just not that big.
Right.
Salt Lake City, for the reasons you guys have already said, which is that it's a basketball building, so there's a number of seats that they can't sell because you can't see the ice, or you can't see the whole ice surface from from where the seats are, just because it's not built. It wasn't built originally for a hockey game. They had the same problems when the Coyotes first moved to Phoenix.
Yeah.
They played in the America West Arena, which is where the Phoenix Suns played at the time, and they had the same problem. So that's a problem. Winnipeg's building from the start has been small.
Right.
They can't and make it larger. They went into the same building that the International Hockey League team played in before, the Moose, and they enlarged it as much as they could. But their capacity still, it's just not enough for what they need. Secondly is for the way facilities are built now are not the same as they were, particularly when I was younger, Scott, or when you were younger.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is like, and this is probably all sports, but particularly arenas for hockey, basketball. You now have a ticket and you go in a certain entrance and your ticket will get you to your section and your level, and that's it. When we were kids, we used to go to the game and we used to go right down to the glass until somebody showed up and threw us out of those seats, and then would move four rows up until somebody threw us out of those seats, and then eventually would end up where we belonged, which is in the last row of the balcony. But the point is, you could move from level to level, section to section, and a lot of these arenas you can't do that now. You come in the front door, and if your seat says 400 level, then you're directed right on the escalator or wherever, the elevator that brings you to the 400 level, and that's where you are. So when you want concessions, you got to get them on the 400 level. When you want to go to the bathroom, you got to go on the 400 level. So you can't do that. Some of these baseball stadiums, at least today, are give you that opportunity to walk around the stadium, and maybe they understand that there's a lot of open seats, and it's great for fans to say like, oh, I want to go sit in right field and see what the view's like. So I think that's a problem too, and compounding that problem means that a lot of the so-called lower level or the club seats and those really expensive special seats are purchased by corporations and businesses, and they don't show up all the time. The tickets end up at somebody's desk. They don't give them away, and I think that adds to attendance woes as well.
Okay, Candy.
Well, as I was doing a little research on this, yes, Utah had the lowest attendance, but they were at 100% for their stadium. So when Mike was saying like these smaller stadiums, it would be more interesting to me is the percentage of your average compared to your capacity. And when I looked at that, I was looking at some of the teams that are in the 80s. There are some teams like the Vegas Golden Knights, they actually sell 102.4% of their capacity, which means they're over capacity most nights on average. But the teams that were in the 80% of their facility, one of them was the San Jose Sharks. They're at 88.4%. So their average attendance was 15,404. Their capacity is 17,435. The other one would be the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're at 88.5%. So they average 16,276, and their capacity was 18,387. Then 88.3%, the Buffalo Sabres. And then if we want 89.6, the Philadelphia Flyers. And then that's it for the ones in the 80s. Everybody else is all in the 90 percentile.
What was Utah and Anaheim at?
So Utah is at 100%. So their capacity is 12,478, and that was what their average was. And now Anaheim and the Honda Center, they're at 90.8%. So their average is 15,593, and their capacity is 17,174.
Yeah. And what's Winnipeg, Candy, if you have it there?
Winnipeg is 93%. They averaged 14,171, and the capacity is 15,225.
I mean, if Winnipeg had a 20,000 seat building, they'd probably put 18, 19,000 people in it.
Well, it goes back to what you said, Mike. It's all about the building, and in many
Right.
of these places, the
Mhm.
building is what's inadequate. All right, let's continue to move on. A lot to get to. We're going to have Mike Santos talk a little bit of marathons, and I have a lot of other things. And we have Cliff's Rent coming up after Charles Barkley. And let's go to our feature topic of the night, and that is the fact that Charles Barkley loves hockey. All right, he loves hockey so much because you guys only care about winning. There's no drama, no load management, no super team. That's why I love your sport. How about that? Charles Barkley loves the NHL.
Oh, is that the handoff to me?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Ed, to you.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't hear and Ed. No, actually, it doesn't surprise me. Charles Barkley loves everything. No, Charles Barkley's a great guy. Side story: years ago, when I was at St. Joe's, I had the privilege of meeting and knowing Charles Barkley because the Sixers would practice at the St. Joe's Fieldhouse when I was a basketball manager. So he's a great guy. He hasn't seemed to have changed over the years. And yeah, he's a sports guy. It doesn't surprise me. You can see, you see him doing the basketball broadcast with Shaquille. You see him doing all the other stuff. So him liking hockey, he'd probably be on skates about as good as he is in golf. If you've ever watched him golf, and he even jokes about his golf game being horrible.
And by the way, Ed, let your fingers do the walk in my book, and you'll see a picture of myself and Charles Barkley in it.
All right, there you go.
Okay, go ahead, Cody.
Oh God, the golf swing. Oh, that was funny.
Yeah.
No, I love what Charles Barkley has to say about hockey because a lot of people will say, this sport is better than this sport, but no, he defends hockey every time it gets brought up.
Mm-hmm.
The only downside is he's a Flyers guy, and I don't like the Flyers. So, but other than that, like I support anyone that helps build the game of hockey. I can't remember if it was him or another basketball guy that someone asked them a question of who's had a better career, Ovechkin or LeBron, and let's just say the guy completely defended Ovechkin over LeBron just off of what he's done and what he's been through. Like, not only was he just a great scorer, you gotta have your head on a swivel because he will crush you into the boards too.
Right.
So, and I was like, all right, cool. Like, some of these basketball guys are defending hockey, and it's always a good thing to see. And I love Charles Barkley for that, other than his golf swing.
Well, listen, his golf swing is like my bowling form. It's unusual. What do you want me to tell you? I mean, I actually beat Dennis Rodman one time in a little bowling thing over in Detroit. I mean, I won a trophy many years ago for most unusual form in bowling. I mean, this is surreal. Just like Charles Barkley went out there. Hold it. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
You go back to that whole Dennis Rodman thing for a second. You did what with Dennis Rodman?
Yeah, I bowled a couple of games with him. I covered the Pistons during the bad
bowling.
boys. Bowling.
Yeah, the bowling. What was the bowling?
Well, here's
that's got to be a story shared. That's
I'm not sharing anything.
Scott and Dennis.
It's about relationships.
Scott and Dennis Rodman bowling.
Let me tell you.
There's a story there.
There is a story.
Let me
tell it. I got Mike Santos about ready to come out of his chair and tell us his marathon story. Let me say this one. I'll tell you the story. I mean, let's face it. Dennis Rodman wasn't a great free throw shooter. All he did was rebound. But we were good friends. He was my friend in the locker room. And I had like 4 or 5, 6 favorites in that room, but he was definitely one of them. I can tell you a story when he told Bill Lambier to get the out of the way when I was talking to him. I told Bill Lambier once, because I can't afford, you can afford your car payment doesn't mean I can afford mine. And Rodman told him to buzz off. That's number one. And by the way, that was at the Boston Garden, Mike, just so you know. And I know you're all too familiar with the Boston Garden. This one here was actually West Bloomfield, Michigan. Okay, and I'll never forget. I saw Rodman and his first wife, Andy, out there. And I said, "Hey, Dennis, you want a bowl game too?" Sure, because we were good. We were buddies, man. that was before the tattoos, earrings, nose rings, whatever the business is. He had Chuck Daly then. That was his daddy. That's why they call him Daddy Rich and Daddy Dennis. Okay. So I go out there and bowl, and Jen said, "Man, you got one of the most unusual forms I've ever seen." And he beat me the first game. I said, "All right, I get it. Okay. So you want to bowl another game, double or nothing? If I win, you have to pay for my games. If you win, I got to pay for it." Sure. I ended up beating him in the second game. He had to pay for both games. We walked away giving each other hugs because we were friends anyway. And, I said, my bowling's like your free throw shooting is really what it is. I mean, it's very good, but it gets the job done.
Oh, my God. But
he loved it. He didn't care because we were friends.
Great. Oh, no, right.
When you build relationships, you can get away with certain things. You really can.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what happened there. All right, so, but yeah, with all due respect, all right, where are we at here? So everyone to hear that story, even though Santos got a few waiting. So where am I at?
We were talking Charles Barkley and hockey.
Right.
Well,
Okay,
first
Cody.
of all, I also have a story of being with Dennis Rodman, which I can't get completely into, but on New Year's Eve 2011, I was with Dennis Rodman, Chris Chelios, Mickey Ward, my friend, the boxer, and Kid Rock. And we spent New Year's Eve together until about 4 o'clock in the morning. But that's as far as I will go with that story.
Wow.
So it was quite a group.
How many likes on this channel to get you to say the story?
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, come on. Oh,
I will shut up for a whole episode just to hear Scott's and Mike's story.
It was
exactly. Yes.
It was an interesting evening.
I'm sure it was.
I will unplug my mic. I will just listen.
All right, well, all right, Candy.
As
your thoughts?
Barkley, I do know that he became a big Flyers fan when he was a young player with the Sixers. He used to go to a lot of the games. I'm sure he probably rubbed elbows with a lot of those players back in the day, the Rick Pockets and Craig Berubes and the like on that team. And then I also know he was a big supporter of the Coyotes when he was playing for the Phoenix Suns too, and became good buddies with Jeremy Roenick during those years. I too have seen him support hockey on the NBA on TNT broadcasts back in the day, and I would have to say that he's probably a big reason, because of his support of hockey. He's probably a big reason why TNT is one of the outlets that broadcasts hockey today. Mm-hmm. He's moved on to ESPN, which also broadcasts hockey. I think that through the years that Charles had some influence there, and probably was encouraging in TNT going after hockey.
Yeah, I've seen a picture with Gary Bettman a lot. So obviously, the commissioner and Barkley are tight. Anything you want to add to it? Then I want to go ahead. Go ahead, Candy.
He admires the players' toughness, the parity in the playoffs, the total focus on winning the Stanley Cup without individual ego. And the one thing, Scott, I wanted to add, here's a picture of Scott with Charles.
Oh,
whoa.
Who? Wow, look at that. Who's that good-looking guy next to Charles Barkley? I can't recognize him. Who's that guy?
Yeah, I was wearing a tie. You don't see that too often. If you look at that picture with me, a tie.
Look at that. He's got his hand around you and everything. That's a great picture.
One of my rare moments when I was actually dressed up. Okay.
There you go.
Hey, what the heck? This is the type of show we have. All right, well, I'll tell you what. It's time for Cliff Neal. And if you won't find me a more passionate rant than this, and then we're going to get on to Mike's story about his marathons and a couple of human interest stories connected to it. So with that said, all right, Candy, Mike, you're going to like this guy. It's too bad we can't get him on Thursday night, but Cliff has worked him on Wednesday, and Cody's had some fun with this guy too. So, yeah, let's turn it over to Cliff Neal. He's going to give me his opinion of what he really thinks of Rick DiPietro. So sit back, everybody. Enjoy Cliff Neal.
Was drafted. That was the dumbest draft pick in the history of hockey. Guess who was the goaltender before that? This guy. His name is Roberto Luongo. You might have heard of him. It's the Hockey Hall of Fame. Oh, no. I'm a genius. He's finally ready to play. Oh, yes. No. I'm smart. I have the first overall pick. They've got Danny Heatley. They've got Marion Gaborik. Oh, no. We don't want those guys. I'm smart. We're going to take this slug from Boston University. He's going to be so much fun. And you know who they got for him? Do you want to know who they got for him? Oh, the immortal Oleg Kvasha and Mark Parrish. Oh, my gosh, he's brilliant. Oh, Mark Parrish, third liner. Oleg Kvasha, he's Russian. He must be good. No, he couldn't skate. He tripped over the blue line all the time. What am I looking at? This was the most ridiculous thing ever. Do you know why? Do you have any clue why it's on 8-year limit on contracts? Rick DiPietro and Alexei Yashin, because they had these ridiculously long deals. They had to intentionally make a rule by the NHL because so the Islanders would stop handing out these idiotic contracts. This is just one chapter of so many more. Most horrible deal ever. The moment it happened, like, no! Okay? I couldn't believe they made it. It was the easiest draft in the world. They screwed it up with Yashin, too. They traded away Zdeno Chara. You might have heard of him. Hall of Fame.
Yes.
But we don't want him. He's 6'8". No, why would we want him? No, we got to go away. Do you realize that 30-year insane asylum that we had? 30 years of absolute stupidity. You could not write a movie script for this because no one would believe it. Yeah, you had Neil Smith. He was GM for 40 days. He basically got fired. And who'd they hire? Garth Snow. Oh, he's a retiring backup goalie. He sounds smart. And so they got rid of after 40 days. All this DPH horrible. Oh, he had a couple of. We lost Roberto Luongo, among other things. I could keep going on. There's too many things to talk about. There's other people on this panel, but you want Roberto Luongo? I hate Mike Milbury with a passion. He can go he can do Providence Bruins games or Colgate University hockey games. The fact he was on NBC all those years was an absolute abomination. I would go nuts, Eric, because he was the most incompetent hockey person ever. The only thing he ever did good was going into the stands, beating a Ranger fan with his own shoe. That's where it ends.
All right. Well,
That's
Mike,
great stuff.
Well, all right, Mike. I need your thoughts about my man Cliff. This guy's done a good job with us on Wednesday night talking hockey.
Well,
Cody's seen him and he's worked with him. Now tell me Cliff is passionate about his hockey. He doesn't like Rick Deep.
Well, he's obviously an Islanders fan, and so I feel his pain. And he doesn't know what he doesn't know. I was actually working for the Islanders during those years.
Oh, were you?
And I can tell you that his anger is misdirected, and it should not be at Mike Milbury, but it should be at the owners.
Okay.
Because Mike Milbury is not stupid. He's not a stupid hockey guy. He's far from it. But he was directed by owners. And I say that plural because I was with the Islanders for 4.5 years, and I had 5 owners.
Oh, wow.
Every year, there was a real estate play happening with a new ownership group coming in. And when they couldn't get a deal done with Nassau County for a new arena and development around the arena, they basically decided that they were going to just tank the hockey team. And so, I mean, I was there. I was there when I met with Howard Milstein and Stephen Gluckstern in the World Trade Center, where Howard Milstein had his office at the time. And Mike Milbury and I were brought down there, met with him in his office, and he told us in no uncertain terms that our payroll had to be cut to under $13 million a year.
Wow.
And that was why all of these players that were traded, I mean, from Zygmunt Palffy to Rich Pilon to Brian Smolinski to Brian Berard. I mean, I could give you 30 names because I was involved in all those things. And oftentimes there was a player like Roberto Luongo or Zdeno Chara who was coming off of their first contract, and the team wasn't going to be able to sign them.
Right.
And so Milbury was forced by ownership to trade them.
Okay.
I can also tell you, and I was gone at this time because I went to Florida Panthers. Bill Torrey brought me down here the first time.
Mm-hmm.
We acquired Roberto Luongo, who I was with the Islanders when we drafted Roberto Luongo. I've known Roberto since he was 17 years old. I spent many a cold night way up in Quebec in Val d'Or, if anybody knows where that is, watching him as a 16 and 17-year-old. And then when he was traded to Lackady Bathurst as an 18-year-old. I also was back with the Panthers when we reacquired him, and that was my trade to bring him back to the Panthers in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
So I know all that. I will also, to what's the guy's name again?
Cliff.
Cliff.
To Cliff's point, I can also tell him in no uncertain terms, because I know this as a fact, that both the Yashin and DiPietro contracts were negotiated by Charles Wang and not Mike Milbury.
Okay.
I even know that from the agents who were on the phone that represented those two players. Newport Sports represented, I won't tell you the agent's name, but Newport Sports represented Yashin, and I'm sorry, no, they represented Pekka, who was also got a big deal during those days, and then Bobby Orr's group was representing DiPietro at the time, and it was Charles Wang that offered those long-term contracts. I think DiPietro's was $4.5 million a year, and I don't remember what Yashin's was, but his was like a 10-year deal, and
right.
So I mean, you can hate Mike Milbury all you want, but it was the owners that drove that. I can tell you, in the almost 5 years I was there, the ownership was John Pickett. Then it was John Pickett who sold off 10% of the team to 4 Long Island businessmen, Paleschi, Rosenthal, and I don't remember the other 2 names now, who actually had control of the team, even though they only had 10% of it. Then I was there when that whole thing was sold to John Spano, who anybody can go on ESPN and watch the documentary about him and how he ended up in prison because he was a fraud. The team then reverted back to John Pickett, and it was sold to Howard Milstein, Stephen Gluckstern. And then after they couldn't get the real estate deal done that they wanted to get done with the county, they soon after, in about a year and a half after, sold it to Charles Wang and Sanjay Kumar, who were with Computer Associates, a Long Island computer software giant at the time. I know it's easy to beat up on Mike Milbury, but I can tell you firsthand that this wasn't Mike Milbury's doing.
Okay, so let me ask you an easy question.
To Mike Milbury's credit, he never came out and stood up for himself. He just took the hits on behalf of ownership, which is sometimes what you have to do in that job if you want to keep your job.
Okay, I'll give you that. You obviously more of an insider than he is, but at least let's just do this for the sake of fun here. All right, you know a lot more. You give us insights on what do you think of the guy's rant in general?
What about
what? What do you think of his rant in general? I mean, was it at least entertaining to watch?
Yeah, he's entertaining, but I'm just telling you as somebody who was in the office that lived this stuff, and I don't blame him for not knowing these things, because as I just told you, Mike Milbury wasn't out there saying it's not my fault, the owner made me do it. He took the hit for it for a long time.
No, that's okay. Hey, listen.
But he was also, once he was given a payroll by Charles Wang and Kumar, he was also the one that turned that team around and put them in the playoffs immediately. Which would have been 2002, I believe, when they added Chris Osgood from Detroit off waivers. in goal to put the finishing touches. He acquired Adrian Aucoin. He hired Peter Laviolette as the coach. I mean, all those things, when he finally had a chance to do what he wanted to do, I mean, he made the deal, like it or not, sending Zdeno Chara to Ottawa, but he got a pretty good player back in return in Yashin, who actually then turned and then backed that deal up the very next day with a deal from Mike Pekka, which was for Connolly, Payet, and a draft pick, and then turned that team into one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference immediately. But he didn't negotiate the contracts for any of those guys. That was Wong, and he didn't hire Garth Snow as his replacement. That was also Wong.
Okay.
So,
All right, Cliff. Let's face it. The master of hockey here. Thought your rant was entertaining, but you obviously, when it comes to Mike Santos, he is the numero uno when it comes to hockey on this network, and he obviously could be the numero uno on any network that he's on. All right, around the horn.
By the way, there is a book coming out in the next year about those years of the Islanders.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, there was one written right up until about 2000. I think it was called Fish Sticks, and now the same author is writing a sequel that's going to take it from like 2000 through the long years.
Okay. All right, around the horn real quick. Ed, at least we know Mike owns the inside. What are your thoughts about Cliff's entertainment value?
He's you should do that all the time. He's precious, as we'll say. He's precious.
I'm always looking to egg him on, by the way, Mike, on any different subject on Wednesday.
I think I was on that show when he did that rant, and it was like a wave forming. Yeah. You know how the wave kind of goes up, and then it just peaked, and there was no holding back. He was coming full steam.
Okay, Cody.
In one rant, I heard about maybe in his rant 4 different accents, a Jim Carrey impression. I could have sworn I heard a Hulk, and a roller coaster of emotions.
Yes,
it was very entertaining. I've been on one on that show when Cliff had a rant. It was definitely not that rant, but it had to do with the Mets. But man, that was very. It is entertaining, and sometimes those rants can be probably the best shorts you can probably make for a podcast.
Yeah, that's all. All right, Candy was laughing at it the next day. She obviously put it. I've never seen her come close to turning red. Candy, some quick thoughts. We have rapid fire on 2. Mike will close out the show as promised with his marathons. We'll let him go whenever he needs to go. But Candy, some quick thoughts as you went out there and had more fun with this as time went on.
Honestly, it was entertaining. But from my standpoint of view, Cliff is a college professor. Could you imagine showing that to your class? Your rant on a YouTube channel? I think that would be kind of funny.
Okay,
that would be kind of funny.
Rapid fire on a couple of these, and then Mike will close out the show with his segment on marathons as we go. All right, recently Zdeno Chara was involved in a cycling accident. He stayed to get first aid. So, Mike, obviously, Zdeno Chara than anybody else. What are your thoughts about his noble efforts?
I didn't hear the second part of it. He was in a cycling accident and what?
Well, he stayed until the guy got first aid.
Oh yeah, I mean that's just him. He's a solid guy, a good person, and I mean would always make sure that he, was taking care of other people. I mean he's the best of the players that I had throughout my career. I mean, he and Paul Kariya are 1 and 2.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment on this real quickly?
Is the ground okay? If Zdeno Chara fell, is he okay? That's all I want to know. Because I'm pretty sure if he hit the ground is going to be more hurt than him.
Exactly.
Oh, by the way, your favorite person, Mike Cliff Nielsen house. They wouldn't be surprised what that means. Okay.
They wouldn't be surprised. That's going back to if they saw his rant.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying. If they saw his rant, they wouldn't be surprised.
Oh yeah.
So that's
All right.
yeah.
Thanks
Oh,
for
so
tuning in, Cliff.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
gonna say
thanks.
thanks for watching, Cliff.
Yeah,
I think we
thanks.
said his name too many times,
Yeah.
and it just triggered.
It's like Beetlejuice. Cliff's like Beetlejuice. He just appears.
Mhm.
Okay. So, any thoughts about Zdeno Chara before I go to a really interesting human interest story? Everybody say their piece on it.
I go with Mike.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it seems like a first-class individual. Mike, obviously, your feelings toward Zdeno Chara are pretty admirable. Great human interest story to talk about. A Boston Marathon survivor married the nurse who cared for him. James Costello was the survivor in 2013. A Boston Marathon nurse, Krista D'Agostino. We're talking about the Boston Marathon bombing, suffered severe burns and shaft injuries. The bombs exploded near the finish line. This is a great story. Now, if you saw the picture of it, he's a relatively old guy and she's a fairly young lady, but nevertheless, the Boston Marathon bombing obviously was a heartwarming story. Some quick thoughts about that. And
Very sweet. It can happen too. When you're somebody's taken care of. I forget what it's even called. You fall in love with your caregiver or something like that. I think it's sweet. Age is what a number. I don't know. Good for them. Hope they're happy.
Cody,
It's a great story, and I hope they live happily ever after.
okay. Candy,
Yeah, hopefully they do live ever after. I mean, it is, sometimes when awful things happen, the best comes out in some people, and they come up to help people, and I think that's always a great, admirable quality in people.
Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I'll never forget that day, first of all, because we actually played in New York against the Rangers and then traveled to Boston. And then, of course, the things that went on that whole week, with us basically holed up in the hotel right downtown Boston, probably 200 yards from where the finish line was and where all that happened. I can remember it being all blocked off. I can remember being in our hotel rooms all day and all night watching TV because they were doing manhunt for the perpetrators. It was one of those things in my life that I won't forget. And we ended up playing the Bruins later that week in their first game after the marathon bombing, and they had a number of the police and fire department people like that there and honored them. And as I think it was Ed that said, it's not too uncommon that somebody who suffers through a tragedy like that ends up with the grace of a caregiver, and maybe following in love and that type of stuff. So I think that's a great story through all the tragedy that's happened. It also, by the way, I mean, maybe this is a good time to bring this up, but for those hockey fans out there that remember Kevin Dineen, this made me think of him because Kevin suffered with Crohn's disease and was in the hospital in Hartford when he was playing for the Whalers and met his wife, who was a nurse, who was caring for him in the hospital. I bring that up because Kevin's suffering right now and can use everybody's thoughts and prayers.
Okay, great stuff. Well, you know what? We're going to transition over to you. That being, I know you talk about your marathon routine and schedule. Take whatever time you need. This is your segment.
No, I just thought it's a good time to talk about something. And I just got into running about 20 months ago now, and I've been fortunate to run in 5 races so far. I'll be running my 6th at the Chicago Marathon in 8 weeks, and then hopefully from there to the Boston Marathon for myself next April. And it's just interesting to see what's happening, not only in this country but around the world with running. I mean, there are 60 million people in the United States now that run, recreationally. There's 600 million people in the world that are running.
Wow.
There are people of all shapes and sizes and backgrounds and everything, because it really doesn't, it's like soccer. In this case, you don't even need a ball, right? And it doesn't matter how fast you are, how slow you are. It's just about, you're out there, moving your body, and anyone can do it. And I've fallen in love with it. I'm in my 60s. My friends and my girlfriend think I'm absolutely nuts and crazy, but it's just become something that I think is it's just a real pure activity. I mean, for those of us, regardless of what obstacles we have in our life, if we're fortunate enough to be able to, stand on our legs and move our legs, we can walk and we can run and do those types of things. And to see what's happening in running as far as how proficient and how good people are getting at it. I mean, this summer, we had the all-time fastest marathon, a guy by the name of Sebastian Sawe, who in April ran the London Marathon in under 2 hours.
Wow.
1:59:30. And
Wow.
to give you some perspective, that would be running a pace of 4 minutes and 34 seconds a mile.
That's insane.
So, I mean, to give you a little more perspective on how fast that is, I mean, people probably heard of Roger Bannister in 1954, which was the first person to ever break the 4-minute mile.
Right.
And that this summer was also broken. A guy from, I think he's from the UK, named Josh Kerr, ran the mile in 3 minutes and 42 seconds for the new mile record, just to show you how fast human beings are getting. But
that's incredible.
But the fastest mile is 3 minutes and 42 seconds, and here's somebody that ran 26 of them in 4 minutes and 34 seconds a mile. Like it's incredible. Eddie.
Wow. That is, yeah. Because I used to run, and I was never a speedster, but I did a couple 10-milers, and I did some distance stuff, and I understand what you're saying, Mike, about you kind of you can get the endorphin and dopamine effect afterwards. It's a really good feeling afterwards, and once you get into your stride, it's really good. But that kind of speed for that kind of distance, that's just a different level of person.
Yeah, it's really incredible. By the way, the women's marathon record is like 2 hours and 9 minutes, which is also incredible. But the fact that people are running marathons now in under 2 hours is just ridiculous. I mean, and of course, ice hockey is a little different because you're on skates and things like that. But the essence of virtually every sport, or what I would consider sport in this world, is running, right? It's running, it's jumping, it's throwing. I mean, that's how we came about the Olympics 1,000 years ago, right? Was running and jumping and throwing, and that's really what makes up most of our sports, and those types of things. And running is the essence of all sports, and that's where it's headed. For those who don't know, there's 7 marathon majors right now. And what's really cool about these events, all marathons, is the professionals and the regular people just run, not necessarily aside each other because the other guys are so fast, or women are so fast, but they're all in the same race, and they're all running the same course in the same 26.2 miles, regardless of whether you're going to do it in 2 hours or you're going to do it in 6 hours. And so the major marathons around the world now are New York, Chicago, and Boston in the U.S., Berlin, London, Tokyo, and they've added Sydney as a 7th. And there's talk about adding Cape Town, South Africa as an 8th major marathon in the world. Those, to give you an idea of the entrance, New York and Chicago will have over 50,000 runners in one race. Berlin and London, the same. In fact, London has now split their marathon into 2 days. So they're going to run it on 2 successive days because there's so many applicants that want to run. They had over 1.3 million applications to run in the London Marathon last year.
That's incredible.
Boston is still the most challenging and most difficult to get in. They accept 30,000 runners. To give you an idea, like my age group, 60 to 64 years old, you have to qualify in a marathon that they'll accept you the qualification from. In my age group, you'd have to run that in 3 hours and 40 minutes as a 60-plus-year-old, and that doesn't still guarantee you acceptance. That's just to be able to apply qualification. So it's just incredible what's going on with running, and I think it's really cool. That's my rant about running. Anybody has any comments?
That's okay. Well, we've talked about wanting to do it the whole time, and this is a perfect opportunity on a show like this. Now, our plans are, and I'm hoping to have Dennis Marook on next week to give him another week off. I want to get this running segment in with you, Mike. This is so perfect, and we have a perfect complement of topics to accommodate as well. And yes, even though he was not as informed about the Islanders as you were, excuse me, it was still fun to have Cliff rant. Now I found something that I could work on every Wednesday night on the Sports Exchange to get his goat anyway. So with that said, Candy, you got Fire Up next. Why don't you let everybody know what they're in for, and we'll wrap this puppy up. Great show tonight. Thanks for everybody in the chat room. Thanks for everybody all over that are tuning in for this edition of Sports Wrap. Scott Morgan Roth, please be joined by Ed McAndrew, Cody Spink, Mike Santos, and Candy Ebling. Candy, go ahead. Give everybody a preview for Fire Up.
We're going to talk a little bit about NFL games that are playing right now. The preseason is on. Some of the key injuries that we've already seen in training camps, a little bit of MLB. We're going to talk about the Lakers being sold again. And then we're also going to be talking about Daniel's conflict with LSU. And if you haven't heard about it, it has to do with NIL and his number 5. And then, of course, the segment that we have on every Fire Up show is what's happening in my town. Back to you, Scott.
All right, well, we're going to go around the horn real quick. Ed, let everybody know they can reach you.
Well, you can see me here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on the 3 shows inside the Big Skin, the Motor City Madmouth, and right here on Sports Wrap. You can catch me, Ed McAndrew, on all the social media. And just a reminder, my fundraiser is still up and running for the next 3 weeks. Association of Frontal Temporal Lobe Dementia. My father suffered with it. My dad, not my father. From 1997 to 2005, when he passed. It is the less talked about dementia, not like Alzheimer's, and this attacks your frontal lobe, your executive functioning. Bruce Willis is one. You can go out to you can hit this QR code, or you can go out and check me out on my Facebook. I have it there as well. Or if you want, just go directly to the TheAFTD.org to donate as well. Thank you.
Great stuff. We'll see you Tuesday night on Inside the Picture. Cody, you're next.
Yeah, you can find my father and I at Rolly Quack on all social media platforms, and all podcast platforms. We're back at going live after a couple of weeks off. Go live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and you can also find me at Ducks Digest on YouTube and all social media as well there too, where I talk Ducks daily there. So, and it's been so fun since I've started.
I see you on TikTok from time to time. I watch as much as I can.
I appreciate it.
TikTok is one of my toys now here as I go ahead and find different people to bring on each show. All right, Mike, go ahead. You're next. Give us some updates on your business and all that. And obviously, we love having you on Thursday nights. We got you going with soccer, and now we're back in hockey. And again, if everything goes according to plan, Dennis Maroka will be back on next Thursday night. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, first of all, congratulations to Ronaldo and his new wife, Georgina, who were married last week.
Oh yeah.
You can reach me at the easiest way is probably just through my website, sportsbusinessadvisors.com. That's sportsbusinessadvisors.com.
And you can see Mike on Thursday night with us here on Sports Rap. Candy, take us away. Final station break, and then we'll turn it over to Fire Up.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. Talks about his 40-plus years in the media business and how it has evolved. Old school media meets new school media. Go get your copy today. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. If you want to be a guest on a show or have topic ideas, or you want to sponsor a show, email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you see the red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, that means you have not yet subscribed to us. Please do so. Click it, like, and share us with all your friends and family. Turn on your notifications so you're notified every time we go live. And then we have a second YouTube channel. If you like traveling at all, you will want to subscribe to our channel. Destination Discoveries Media Network. Let me put the QR code for that up in the top left right now. We have all things travel. We go to a destination and we talk all about it. So we have been to Key West, Naples, Florida. We've been to Paris, Germany, Portugal, Spain, Iceland, Norway. Go check out the channel to find out what we all saw and subscribe so you get notifications every time we put up a new video. Back to you, Scott.
All right, just a programming note. No 108 Stitches Baseball Talk this Monday night. Candy will have the No Limits Travel Show will take our place, and Candy and I are planning to hit the road this weekend. The destinations we're looking at are Tarpon Springs and Dunedin. With that said, that does conclude this edition of Sports Wrap. On behalf of Ed McAndrew, Cody Spink, Mike Santos, Candy Ebling, and myself, the Motor City Madmouth, I want to thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you next week, Thursday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time here on Sports Wrap. Good night, everybody. We'll see this group again next Thursday night. Looking forward to this group here, talking hockey. And let me tell you, I've got some unbelievable things we're going to be talking about as the season gets ready to go and training camp is on the way. Fire Up is next. Good night, everybody. See you next week, and have a great weekend.